The American Classic aggregates are a cheap and chunky take on one of the most popular gravel tire tread patterns on the market. They're completely fine. 6 out of 10 outright, bump that up to 8, maybe 8.5 out of 10 if you adjust to their $35 price point. They really are just a damn good deal. They're certainly not going to change your life, but they're just rock solid. I would describe them as exceptionally okay. And it might sound a little bit weird, but I don't mean exceptionally okay to be a criticism. These tires are completely fine, but they are kind of only completely fine, if that makes sense. The last review I did was the American Classic Crumbanes, and I did bond with those tires because I felt like they had a good personality, they had really nice ride characteristics, and they fit into a corner of the market that didn't feel overly full. The aggregates, on the other hand, are the opposite. They're in a really stacked corner of the gravel tire industry, and there's just so many excellent alternatives, and I've ridden quite a few of them, so they just didn't really stand out. But before we get into that, let's talk about the ride. And the aggregates are completely pleasant when you're out on the gravel roads and the sort of lighter trails. They're a mix of enough speed, enough grip, and a good level of comfort for a lot of what people actually do on their gravel bikes. Now the tread pattern is quite light, and it's even lighter than you might expect out of the box because the central tread is kind of shaved down and flattened a little bit from new. And that is a little bit unusual compared to something like a Schwalbe G1 or a Continental Terra Speed, which has a much more consistent shaping to the tread. I'm not entirely sure why they did this, but I can speculate and say maybe they wanted to differentiate it from the Udin a little bit, because if this did have a taller tread pattern, then those two tires would fall into broadly the same category and you probably wouldn't need to have both in your range. So there's only a little bit of bite in them, but that is completely fine when you're on the vast majority of compacted gravel roads. This is completely suitable for a lot of people. They are relatively capable when you're out on the trails, but there's only so much you can expect from this amount of grip to start with. I tested these in a 40mm width, and I think they'd be a lot better on trails if you bump that up to the 50mm, which they do come in. But yeah, they're just not going to be that kind of absolutely everything type of tire. I will compliment their ride quality though. Just like the Crumbanes, they have a really good supple sidewall, and that does differentiate them from quite a few of the gravel tires that are coming into the market now, which are getting a little bit on the stiffer side. So yeah, the overall ride quality is quite comfortable. Overall, they're kind of what you'd expect from a tire you'd describe as extremely okay. From an install and maintenance perspective, there's not a lot to say. I did find that one tire was much easier to get onto the rim and the other was quite a bit harder. So there might be a little bit of sort of sample variation coming out there. Since they have been on the rims, I've had to do absolutely nothing to them. They've held up tubeless without any problems. There is some wear starting to show on the rear tire with the tread shaving down. Front tire still looks really good though. It's a fine result. You have to remember that these started with very little tread to begin with, so they're doing okay. But let's talk now about where they sit in the market. And my sort of mild ambivalence about them partly springs from the fact I've ridden so many of their really good alternatives. My favorite within this category is the Panaracer Gravel King SS. Those tires are absolutely superb. They're comfortable, they're fast, they're grippy. I just think they're fantastic. But they are, in the Australian market, twice the price. So you can buy an entire set of the American Classics for the cost of one Gravel King SS. Then you have the Pirelli Cinturato H, which is amazingly fast and probably a bit grippier than the aggregates. They don't quite have as good a ride quality, and they certainly punctured more than the American Classics as well. Still though, a generally better tire in most ways, but again, so much more expensive. The Continental Terra Speeds are a very good comparison because the price jump is only fairly small and they do have a fairly similar ride characteristic. I would say that the Terra Speeds are grippier and faster, but the wear life on them was absolutely terrible. So the American Classics will certainly outlast them, but not be quite as nice to ride sort of during the process. So really you could go either way. The American Classic is the better spend over time, but the Continental Terra Speed is definitely the better tire in the moment. Now, of course, people might want to know about the Schwalbe G1. I haven't ridden the new one, so I can't really comment. I've only ridden the old one. So across all of the tires in this category I've ridden, the American Classics don't stand out in any way other than value, but that's fine. A lot of people are just looking for a tire that's good enough and won't break the bank. Wrapping it all up then, I would say that the fast-rolling, fairly low-grip corner of the gravel market is absolutely stacked with superb options, and I don't really think that the aggregates are one of them. They are still a very good option though, and they absolutely deserve their place in the market. Some tires just need to be really good value for what they are, and that is certainly what American Classic have done with them. They may not have a really strong identity, I may not miss them once I've worn them out, but that's fine. There's plenty of more expensive tires, there's plenty of other options in this category. I do think that a lot of people will find these perfectly fit their needs. And really, that's all there is to it. I'd like to thank American Classic for sending me these to review. There are links through to their full tire range in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me as always, and don't forget to ride safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.